Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well during these difficult times. Thank you all for joining this webinar, which is organized by Veracity Solutions. I would like to introduce the speakers for today's session, Mr. Roscoe Dobo and Mr. Jaideep Vasani. Please note that you will be on mute during the session. We will be open for all the questions at the end of session. You all can paste your questions in the questions tab on your right-hand bottom corner, and it will be answered at the end. I would now like to welcome Roscoe. Roscoe, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Neha. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, wherever you are. Welcome to this special webinar. We are here to talk about today as to how you can increase your cash flow efficiency using integrated planning. And really, this is having an enhanced focus from a discussion perspective because there's a lot of talk about how COVID-19 is ushering in the new normal. And COVID-19 has definitely changed the way the world works. It has impacted us just like the Great Depression or the dot-com bubble or even the 2008 financial crash. And while everybody asks the one key question as to when will we go back to being normal, we strongly believe rather, that this is the new normal that we are already in. And there's a certain ways that we see this playing out. And what I'm going to talk you through is the 5 key aspects which COVID-19 is going to have an impact on. So point one is workforce well-being. And this is not only from a physical, but also a mental standpoint. As people adapt to the work from home model, even exhaustion and professional burnout is becoming a point of key concern for most employers. Next, remote worker support quality is something that is going to be a key differentiator and give organizations a competitive edge. And that is primarily because most of the workforce is going to begin working from home. And this is going to be a key competitive card that most organizations are going to play from even a business development perspective. Next, agile workforces are not only by exception, but by rule going to be working remotely. They will be working from across the globe, and the onus or the responsibility lies on organizations to enable the platforms and tools that help their workforce become highly agile and highly mobile. There's also a new set of leadership skills that will be required as we deal with a virtual workforce, a virtual global organization. A lot of leaders are going to have to equip themselves with the tools, technologies, and the manners in which they are able to leverage the best out of their workforce. Lastly, all businesses will have only digital business as a viable economic model, and this will not be optional. And a few examples over here. So from an agile workforce standpoint, Automatic Inc., which is the owner of the website content management platform WordPress, they have roughly 455 million websites, or roughly 35% of all the websites in the world using their platform. And out of 1172 employees that are on their payroll in across 75 countries, all of them work from home. No one goes to office. And from a digital business standpoint, I'd like to take the example of the US movie industry, which is roughly an annual $41 billion industry. And the same survey conducted in the month of December 19, where they were asked the question of how many of them would consider watching a movie released for the first time at home, meaning how many of them would prefer to stream it from home. And that answer or the response was 37%. And just in March 20, or 3 to 4 months apart, that response went up to 50%. So we can see that the world is being forced to digitize. Uncertainty, but obviously, will creep in, because this is not the normal that we are used to working around, not the normal we are used to experiencing. And it goes without saying that a lot of factors are uncontrolled, and without a fraction of a doubt, this is outside the circle of competence for most business leaders today. Irrespective, there is a particular framework that we'd like to suggest, where we feel you can proactively prepare yourself to face not only this uncertainty that we are going through right now, but any uncertainty that would come across in the future. And it's a cycle where you prevent, prepare, and predict for what has to happen. So from a prevention standpoint, you could ensure that you take certain employee specific or employee centric decisions where you are able to care for their health. You are able to govern policies at the workplace to ensure social distancing is in place. Also, work from home is enabled for people. So that is as far as prevention goes. From a preparation standpoint, we need to pay an attention to the important functions, the important departments within our organization. And this is where you think from a customer centric standpoint. So key operations such as the purchase or procurement department, the supply chain operation, the sales and marketing operation, all of these, we need to proactively have a central division of command or a central command center. This will enable us to ensure a central body of oversight for all the functions. And lastly, we need to predict when these measures would need to be kicked off, when these risk assessment triggers would need to be put into effect. And this is a continuous cycle where you prevent, prepare, and predict. And not just that, you also need to build resilient operations. And the way you do that is using three different measures. First, resiliency needs to be ingrained in the organization culture itself. It is not something that will happen overnight. It would require a significant investment from an HR perspective. Next, you enable global social collaboration tools, because we've realized today that without something like a Microsoft Teams, without something like a GoToWebinar or a Google Meet, it's not really possible to collaborate with your employees who may be situated across the globe. Next, again, there needs to be a central repository that's available to the employees no matter where they are, so they can access these tools, these collaboration mechanisms, and all the technologies in the organization are available to people across the globe. Lastly, you need to introduce an aspect of digitization along with the human aspect. And here I'd like to take an example of one of our customers who I was speaking to recently. And one of the challenges that they faced is that most of the people, it wasn't a challenge to enable remote work from home. But there were certain data entry operators who live in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because there is a vast hub and spoke model that this business operates on. And to enable work from home for these guys was not just a challenge, it was impractical, because they come from poor income households, low income households, and they didn't have computers in the first place. So it took a greater amount of time to enable work from home for people who were involved in clerical activities. So this is where you have an opportunity to use AI and automation, so that clerical work or work that does not involve too much of human knowledge or human intervention can be taken care of using solutions such as bots, using IoT and AI technologies. Lastly, we need to have a global services delivery model, because as we can see, the companies that have been most affected today are the ones that have had high dependency on manufacturing operations in certain sections of Southeast Asia. So it's very important that we need to look at certain single points of failure, ensure that there are multiple ways in which we can fall back on multiple different geographies where our business processes are spread out. And at this point, if I had to say that all of this is possible without an ERP, it would sound a little absurd, right? But ERP is just a way of life, something that we have become used to. Because if we take the example of the ERP, it is something that has evolved over the past 60 years into the form in which we see it today. So we had the inventory control systems in the 1960s, where people were able to get a better view of their inventory. Then we had the material requirement planning that came in the 70s. So every 10 years, we've seen a quantum leap. The manufacturing resource planning, or MRP2, came in the 1980s, where people had a more holistic picture of their manufacturing processes. So this involved the concepts of bomb explosion, shop floor control, and greater degree of inventory control. And lastly, when the ERP came only in the 1990s, due to a term coined by Gartner and a process that was adopted by multiple organizations, the real reason why ERP is there with us even today is what it did was that it brought together independent individual silos or islands of functions such as HR, accounting, finance, procurement, production, inventory, etc. All of these on one single holistic platform. And that is the reason the ERP curve has extended itself into today. And today what we are witnessing is an extension of the ERP, where they are incorporating multiple HCMs, CRMs, etc. And that has resulted in an IT finance topology that looks something like this. At the base layer, we have the transactional systems supporting our day-to-day operations. These could be ERP, CRMs, marketing technology tools. Above that, we have the layer of data warehousing, where data is consolidated from these multiple transactional systems into maybe an SAP or an Oracle or a DB2 or a SQL. And above that, we have certain traditional CPM applications or corporate performance management applications, which help us carry out traditional FP&A activities. But the challenge here is that most of the people depend on spreadsheets. As a result of which, it gives rise to an unauthorized, unorganized, ungoverned, and a shadow decision support layer. So ultimately, multiple people are between these three different layers and the decision makers for operations, sourcing, capex, marketing, so on and so forth. So what happens is a very filtered down and incorrectly tied together piece of information goes to the decision makers. Now, when we talk about spreadsheets, by nature, they are very quick, flexible, easy to use, but there's also multiple challenges that come into the picture. There could be a challenge of missing data, where someone has pulled in from only a few tables in the data warehouse and missed out on a few. There could be inaccurate data where someone has pulled in information, but the formulae are incorrect. There could be misrepresented information because now in Excel, people have the flexibility to manipulate numbers as per their own free will. People could also have unauthorized access. So what goes to the decision makers is not necessarily one single version of truth. And also because of that, you have predefined batch aggregated views of information and only periodic insights. So this is from an EPM and traditional CPM maturity perspective. Let's further understand how CPM has matured over the years. In the 70s, we had simple accounting software, which turned into spreadsheet solutions coming into the picture in the 80s. It was only in the 90s that we had web-based CPM tools. They went from desktop to web mainstream in the early 2000s. And that brings us to where we are today, which is AI-driven decision-making, data-driven decision-making. Let's also talk a little bit about user maturity, because why would our technology exist if the users were not willing to adapt? And what we are seeing is most organizations today have this mix of the general user population. Around 10% are the power users. These are either data analysts or data scientists. They are data hungry, resource hungry. They want the right tools, right solutions, right platforms. And the remaining 90% of the users are either consumers or explorers and only going to view the insights that the 10% power users are going to generate for them. Now, because these 10% of the population are power users, they not only want the right tools, they want those tools to be available across devices, across platforms. Let's take our own example. We are probably viewing this webinar right now on our laptop while we are typing away something on our phone, and our kid is in the background using an iPad for his online lectures, right? And to service that very requirement, we think that IBM provides you the ultimate opportunity in the term or in the form of planning analytics. Planning analytics is a solution that not only helps you build one robust, connected, collaborative platform with real-time updates, it also helps you strongly integrate using the gold standard Excel plugins that it has. How does it do that? It is fast and easy to use. It provides quick time to value because it's easy to set up. It provides a web-based workspace so users can very flexibly log into the URL and use it from their computers. There is strong Excel integration capabilities also, but here you have the flexibility that data need not be a repository in Excel. The data is stored in a central repository, which is planning analytics, and Excel is just a medium for that communication. Next, you have certain visual aspects. You have the dashboards, you have certain self-service analytics that can be carried out. Collaboration is very easy, very simple, because it is one single platform on which all your functions are tied together. Next, you can use natural language self-discovery as well. That is also something that's enabled. Next, irrespective of how complicated your business process is, it can be quickly modeled. Your business rules and business hierarchies, irrespective of complexity, can be handled by planning analytics. You have flexibility with respect to the modes of deployment as well. So you are not tied to, like most other vendors would force you, to cloud or to premise, and with 100% functional parity. So irrespective of where you choose to deploy, all the functionalities and features remain the same. Lastly, this platform is highly secured, highly governed, highly compliant. So security is something that comes as a given. Lastly, you can also use it for presentations because multiple people are there on this platform. The data is connected, the data is real time. So you can also use this to build highly intelligent visualizations that can be shared across the organization. So needless to say, planning analytics provides more out of the box capabilities than any other business planning solution out there. And how does it do that, right? It gives you the flexibility not only of a web-based workspace, it also provides you flexibility to have a connected Excel integration. And lastly, you have the flexibility of the leadership or senior level management to access these numbers on the iPad as well. Like I said before, planning analytics is a beautiful solution that does not tie you in or lock you down for any particular mode of implementation or mode of deployment. It is also not just a point solution or a point platform solution. It is part of an extensive suite of solutions, part of which is Watson as well. And these can be comfortably hosted on the data and AI platform that IBM offers, which is Cloud Pak for Data. And this can be hosted on any one of your clouds. So it can be Red Hat OpenShift, it could be IBM Cloud, it could be Azure, it could be AWS, it could be Google. So the flexibility is enormous in this particular case. And while 96% of managers are explicit with their dissatisfaction of the organization's current performance management practices, most organizations don't do anything about it. There's also multiple challenges that we face with Excel, and to quantify it, 90% of spreadsheets have errors in them. Most of us would have experienced it on a day-to-day basis. They certain times go corrupt, usually due to misuse, but sometimes not because of our own mistakes. Hundreds of hours, if we have to quantify it in terms of an organization, that would probably be in the few hundred thousands to a few millions, are wasted every month in terms of productivity. And to take an example, JP Morgan had one such model built in a spreadsheet that cost them $6 billion. And the reason was simple. This was a simple value at risk model that told them what is the kind of risk or leverage that they can take with respect to certain hedges. And because the risk was understated due to an error in the copy pasting from one sheet to another, what resulted was JP Morgan overloading or overburdening the risk they had, and that resulted in a loss of worth $6 billion. That is where IBM Planning Analytics helps you plan for anything, be ready for everything. And the way it does it is not only by being a platform for any particular use case or any particular scenario, it helps you from an IT perspective to carry out IT portfolio planning, shared services planning, project planning. In sales, we have sales forecasting using integration capabilities with SPSS or probably decision optimization. You can carry out capacity planning from a marketing standpoint, from an HR standpoint, finance, operations, all of these, and there's value to this as well. And this has been quantified in a total economic return report by Forrester, and they say that approximately 63% of EOP cycle time can be saved by using this particular solution. Approximately 70% of forecast cycle time can also be saved. And over the course of 3 years, from the organizations that were interviewed for that particular Forrester research report, they stood to save greater than $1 million in terms of a streamlined process. I'd like to take a few examples over here so that we can see how the customers benefited themselves. iMed Radiology Network is one of the largest radiology networks in Australia. They roughly carry out 4.2 million annual procedures. They have 3,000 employees, 185 clinics across 5 states. And because each of these clinics, or rather the BUs, were given operational flexibility with the way they carried out their CapEx planning, their operational planning, what happened is group consolidation was very complicated and also, needless to say, a time-consuming process. So what they wanted and what their requirement was to have a modern platform that could help them streamline planning and budgeting for more operational related planning. And the benefits they saw with going with planning analytics is that the model, the calculations and data are now securely held because it comes into one central repository, not BU specific. Next, quick time to value because they could go live in 4 months end to end, including user support and user guidance. They also had real-time planning insights. Previously, they had to carry out an exercise where the users would punch in certain information in Excel. This Excel would have to be dropped into a central planning and budgeting consolidation platform. That would take 20 minutes to refresh. So imagine if you carry out an upload and you realize that you made a mistake, you cannot rectify that immediately. So now with the implementation of planning analytics, iMed Radiology Network did not have to wait. And they could additionally include certain tariff models, certain billing models, certain teleradiology BU related models also, which were earlier not possible using the previous technology. A next example is that of Pebble Beach. It is a very popular resort based out of California. Their challenge was that they had an evolving product catalog. It was a very complicated process of merchandise planning. They had 15 stores and 30,000 SKUs, and retail was one of the key generators of the bottom line for them. So what they wanted was something that would help them optimize merchandise planning and give them an enhanced retail customer experience. What they've seen is now a 99% reduction in time to generate inventory reports. They can free up the IT resources that were previously involved in these activities for other activities and other initiatives. Also, because they were able to manage their inventory better, they were able to reduce the cost of sales, thus resulting in a 100K uplift in the gross margin. And Pebble Beach is one of the popular resorts. People may have heard of it because the PGA Tour also has a particular section of the event. So a very popular golf tournament that takes place over there. And they have also seen innumerable benefits. And one of the main factors for them of going with planning analytics is no restriction on the number of SKUs that can be supported by such a platform. In this case, being 30,000. And let's not only look at what the customers have to say about us, let's look at also what the industry leadership says. So the Business Application Research Center, or BAC, carried out a planning survey last year where planning analytics was given the top rank in product satisfaction, in performance satisfaction, and in user experience as well. And these are researches which, unlike other research reports, are not funded by the OEMs or by the organizations. These are researches that are open to public, and public is invited to give their views and their opinion and rate different products. Next, Gartner itself positions IBM in the leadership quadrant. So having said all of that, I'll now move over to the demo. And without further ado, let's experience how planning analytics functions in an integrated planning setup. To do this, for today's demo, we have 4 user roles. The first would be that of Bob. He's a sales and marketing manager. He is a demand planner. He's responsible for new product launches, those product pricing, and also version comparison. Next, we have the operations manager, who goes by the name of PM for lack of a better name. He is in charge of production planning, capacity planning, and manpower planning. Next, we have Ross, who is the FP&A manager over here. He looks after overall numbers, cash flow management, balance sheet management, P&L management. And lastly, we have Erica, who's the CFO and who owns responsibility for overall numbers. There we go. So this is planning analytics as a web-based workspace. Once you enter the URL, you are on the landing page. So let's log in first from the perspective of Erica. Once we have successfully entered, let's familiarize ourselves with the home screen. We have at the top the multitask button, and where that is helpful, we will get to that. We have the login, logout option for Erica over here. On the left-hand side, we have the 2 key directories, shared and personal. So shared is where the entire organization collaborates. Personal is something that Erica would create only for self-consumption. So here we have the concept of books and folders. Folders can have multiple books inside them. And since we are talking about a consumer product goods company called as Smartco, all the books are available to Erica for her analysis. And although demand planning, operations, and FP&A are 3 of the independent functions, Erica is really concerned with the executive outlook. So this is where she goes. So here, Erica has the flexibility to select the financial year, selection of which would result in all the widgets realigning themselves. They have multiple versions also for Erica selection. And also she can see the different P&L line items and how they're performing on a quarterly basis for 2020 from a budget standpoint. Now what Erica sees is that in Q2, which would be April, May, and June as the months, she is seeing that we are still making good revenue and we are still making a net profit, which is something that concerns her. Further, she goes into the FP&A analysis sheet. In this book, what is of main concern to her is the cash flow. So here what she does is goes ahead and parks a comment after her due diligence and after her analysis. What she sees is that days sales outstanding is something that is at 40 days currently, which would impact the cash flow situation. So here what she's going to do is go ahead and talk to Ross, who is the FP&A manager, and say, please look at reducing the days sales outstanding for Maryland, since most of her revenue comes from Maryland. Now that she has done this, Erica has to move off for a meeting. So at this point, she's going to log out. Let's log in again, this time from the perspective of Bob, who's the demand planning manager. Once again, Bob gets that same familiar home screen where he goes into the folder where he is expected to collaborate, and you can see all the other books are not visible to him. Bob, being the demand planner, is not able to see the FP&A book. He's not able to see the production planning book, the operations planning book, that is, and he's not able to see the book which is specifically for Erica. So this is where Bob enters. This is his home screen within the demand planning book. He has options to carry out the demand plan. He can look at a summary of the previous year versus the current plan. And lastly, he can also see the product profitability report. So let's take the first step and go ahead with the demand plan. So here, Bob is aware of Erica's concern that we are doing revenue in the month of May as well. Probably we should not have any revenue at all. So what he does is, rather than meddling with any of the budgets which have already been frozen, he'll go ahead and create a new budget. And that's as simple as this. Budget version 3. Once we do that, budget version 3 is also available for our selection. But obviously, once we select that, all the numbers will go to 0 because this is something we have not planned for. So here, very easily, he can also create a baseline. So here, Bob is going to replicate the budget from the base version, which was budget that was previously being used, to budget V3. Having done that, he can view that the numbers have now been populated. So volume in units has been populated. Pricing assumptions are something that he still needs to take care of. He also feels, being in charge of new product launches, that in the 4G segment, we have only 16 GB and 32 GB mobile phones. Probably, given that per capita data consumption is going up because people are spending more time at home, it would make sense to launch a new product. And that also is simple as a few easy clicks. So that product would be included in the 4G smartphones category. The SKU code will be 22,003. And lastly, the SKU name would be 4G 128 GB. That's it. No need of overnight batch processes and no need to take down the entire model, or no need to go through multiple steps of approval. This element or this line item within the product category has been added throughout this entire model, throughout the book and throughout all of its pages. So here, but obviously it won't have any sales in terms of number of units for the months of Jan to May. The sale starts only for the month June onwards. And here too, he doesn't need to go and manually input in one cell at a time. He can use the shortcut of spreading, and there we see a flat demand of 2000 across all the months. At this point, he goes ahead and checks the pricing assumptions. So here too, budget version 3 will not have any of the prices. But on being refreshed, once we copy the prices from budget to budget version 3, we will get the numbers across the board, not just for the 4G 128 GB phone, but also for the 32 GB phone. Right? At this point, what Bob feels is, probably let's zero in only on maybe internet as a distribution channel, not really retail and the distribution network that we have. So what he can do here is simply remove the selling price for retail, simply remove the selling price for distribution, and he can focus using snap commands. What he can say is just keep internet, and we can focus only on that. So once we click on V3, what we can see is this is the unit price. He could give probably an additional discount if required, keep it 30%. Sorry, not for the month of May, since we are beginning the launch on the month of June. Just an introductory discount so that people come in and start to buy our product. And that's it. Once he's done with that, he looks at the summary report for previous year versus the current plan. What he can see is the actual is much poor as compared to what we are forecasting in budget version 3. So the variance also has been analyzed for him, and it's easier to see that in the previous year we were in the positive. However, current year we are in the negative. Not just that, he has the flexibility to look at a product profitability report as well. So let's look at that. So here he can look across multiple versions, across multiple months. He can look at it for a total level, or specifically maybe for the month of July. He can look at what is the unit net sales price, what is the volume, all of it neatly represented in a form that can further be shared across the organization in the form of PDF, in the form of a slice or a snapshot to Excel. Rather, this entire book itself can also be shared across the organization depending on what options are made available to the end users. So it could be sent via email, it could be sent by downloading it and then attaching it or uploading it to a drive. It could be added to social media such as a Slack channel. You could also alternatively get the link and share it with someone. Now, mind you, irrespective of how the share happens, it would not be visible to a person who does not have the authorized accesses. So far, we've seen things from Bob's perspective. Let's say Bob is done. He's launched a new product. He's set the pricing for that product as well. Now it's up to our product manager, who goes by the acronym of PM, to look at what he can do about it. Again, the same familiar interface. He goes to the folder. What he is able to see is only the operations book, just the way it should be. And the options that he has are production plan, capacity plan, and manpower planning. Let's go to production plan. So here, let's move from budget V2 to budget V3. What we can see is that Shanghai is also shown to be contributing some form of output to the production plan, whereas point blank May needs to be reduced to 0. So this is where planning analytics integration with decision optimization solution as well, where automatically these numbers can be calculated depending on different constraints. So here what he feels is that the 3,500 odd units that Shanghai was to produce in the month of June should be accommodated by Houston. So here, what do we need to do? No need of mental math. What I can just do is say add 3557. So here we are using a shortcut. I can change this to 0. Demand has shifted. Here again, for the month of July, just temporarily, because I feel June and July are the months in which Shanghai, I will not be able to operate the plant. So here I'm going to go ahead and add 3718. Again, that's done automatically. No need of doing the mental math. And July is reduced to 0 for Shanghai. I feel August onward, we will be able to move back to normal. Now, I also need to look at the capacity plan. That was the production plan. So from a capacity standpoint, we are fairly comfortable. 35,000 is the total capacity. Again, for the month of May, Shanghai will not be available. For the month of June, Shanghai will not be available, as well as for the month of July. So we can see that reflecting in this chart as well. So it makes it really, really easy to view what it is that we need to be doing. Next, let's go to manpower planning. Here again, change from budget V2 to budget V3. Here I see that since the production is going to be moved to the Houston plant, what we need to do is probably hire a production manager for those 2 months. So let's name this guy new hire. PM also goes ahead and selects the function, which makes available further options within that particular job type. He thinks that he needs an ops manager. The count will be 1 FTE, and this guy will start in the month of June, and he's going to be ending his contract in the month of, let's say, August. We only need him for 3 months. Once that is done, we can see the FTE count reflecting. We can also see the salary coming in as per the job type and the job code, and the salary assumptions that are held in a separate repository. Now, once this is done, PM is happy. He's fairly satisfied. He thinks that his job is done. And at this point, he's going to log out. So he has not only checked out the production plan, he has also checked out the capacity. And to enhance or support that enhanced capacity, he also needs a new hire, for which would probably be a contractual hire for 3 months, beginning June, ending in August. So the demand planner is done. The operations manager is done. At this point, let's log in from Ross's perspective. So Ross is our FP&A manager. He is also a confidant for Erica. Once he logs in, he can see the FP&A book. He can also see a notification, which means there is a message for him, probably from Erica. Let's find out. So here he can see the year in review. Certain key KPIs such as the sales, quarter on quarter, net income, quarter on quarter, operating expenses, gross margin, quick ratio, current ratio. So this is a quick health checkup organizational efficiency checkup. He does not need to ask multiple people, revert on mail, make phone calls. Everything is viewable in one single dashboard. And not just that, not just for Maryland, he can look at it across the organization, be it Canada, be it the central region, which has provinces such as Michigan, etc. So what he can do is look at the message that's been sent for him. So here you can see that Erica has a concern. Please look at reducing the DSO, the day sales outstanding for Maryland. So here his attention is drawn to the bottom left of the screen. He sees that Erica's concern is very valid. Although we are doing good business, increasing quarter on quarter, our day sales outstanding is also increasing quarter on quarter. So what he can do is go to the financial summary. He can look at the numbers over there as well. He can go to the income statement. He can look at the numbers here as well. Now here the power of planning analytics comes into the picture. Let's suppose that he also wanted to make certain changes. Okay, let's say COVID-19 worst case. So here he could make a reduction by 20% to the overall sales. Okay. Okay, let's say he makes that. Okay, whoops, my bad. So not 500,000, let's make that 5 million. There we go. We see that the numbers have changed in blue. So this is an additional functionality that IBM Planning Analytics offers, where I can not only change a number, but also see its subsequent impact. So sales is not necessarily impacting raw material, labor, but it does in fact impact my gross margin. It also impacts my net margin. So here I can go all the way through to the balance sheet, see the numbers in blue that are actually being impacted. So a change in the sales has impacted the cash and cash equivalents. It has also changed the accounts receivable. And even if I want to revert this change, I can do that. Before that, we can compare this with the base version. So the base version at 6 million, the COVID-19 worst case at 5 million. And if I choose to commit this data, it is only then that the rest of the organization, apart from me being Ross, can see it. If I choose to stay with the base version, nobody in the organization can see the associated changes. So let's go ahead and commit the numbers that were created for the COVID-19 worst case. Here the numbers are populated and can be seen across the organization. Now also go ahead and take a look at the trial balance. Here we can go ahead and reduce or alleviate Erica's concern. And again, I don't need to go and select each thing one by one. What I can do is just reduce the day sales outstanding to 30. What I can ultimately see is the impact on the cash flow, but obviously the cash inflow will increase for me, although I'm having a reduced sales, but that is something that was wanted by Erica. And at this point, Ross is also done with his analysis. He thinks that the numbers are good to go and good to review for Erica. So let's say he goes and comments over here. The needful and sales reduced to 5 million for Maryland. There we go. No need of any supporting documents, no need of any mails to be sent. Everything remains on the platform. The numbers have been changed, right? Here, let's lastly log in from Erica's perspective. She's had a busy day, but she's hoping that Ross and the other guys have turned things around. So at the end of a day, she goes back to the folder, goes into the executive Outlook, looks for any comments to see if the changes have been done. Whoops, my bad. So she will go to the FP&A book, which is where the changes were requested. She's going to go to the chat window. And there she sees the reply. So Ross says, I've done the needful and I've reduced the sales to 5 million for Maryland. And being okay with that, Erica says, all right, this is good. I see the changes being reflected over here, and also looks at the cash flow and says that, okay, fine, as a business, although COVID is impacting us and that we're going to take a hit probably for the month of April and possibly even for May, until the end of the year, we're going to have 9.3 million as cash and cash equivalents. And with this, possibly we come to the end of a demo. The note I'd like to leave you on is, since Planning Analytics is also integrated with another solution, an enterprise BI solution called as Cognos Analytics, you can integrate it with that platform as well. But we'll leave that for another demo. That's all from my perspective. Thank you very much. Sneha, over to you.
Thank you, Roscoe. That was a very good demo. Okay. And we would now proceed with questions. But before, asking questions to you, we would want the audience to engage with us in a poll that we're just going to run. So I'm going to request you all that there, in just next few seconds, there will be a poll displayed on your screens, and would want you all to answer that. So, Roscoe, we have few questions for you from the attendees, and once in next few seconds we're done with the poll, yeah. So, yeah, the first question that we have is how many users can we take for planning analytics? So, how many users can we take planning analytics for, rather? Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Neha. So do you want me to wait for the poll to end? I see it's currently still active.
Yes. So you can go ahead and answer. I mean, yeah.
Sure. Fair enough. So there's Jadip, I'll take this one up. I don't think there's really a minimum number of participants that you need. However, it does make sense to view the existing scheme of things depending on you being a small, medium-sized, or large organization. If you have too many Excel spreadsheets, too many custom logics, no central repository for rules, there's too many platforms to integrate with, then you can start from as small as 5 for a departmental use case to as many as 10,000 users. So we have one of the users who's one of the customers who has more than 1,000 users, and they're using it with absolutely no challenge. So I think it really depends on what is the complexity of the business challenge that you are facing. Is it that you are having to do too many back and forths, as an exercise in a spreadsheet based environment that is resulting in no single version of truth and lack of confidence in numbers? So when you have all these modules connected on one cohesive, comprehensive platform, it really makes it very easy to close your budget. So we've seen certain places where a budget taking 120 days or 4 months coming down to even 45 days if done correctly. So again, no minimum number, but I think 5 people and a departmental use case is a fair enough starting point, as is an AOP or annual budgeting use case with 300 plus users.
Okay. Thank you for that. We have one of the questions from the audience. Can this be integrated with multiple databases?
Okay, that's a good question. So that is one of the reasons why Planning Analytics has an orchestration layer. We have two components called as Cognos Integration Server and Cognos Command Center. What these essentially enable is the organization to automate any admin activities associated with data integration and multiple databases. It could be an Oracle. People would be happy to know that 60-70% plus of our customers are using SAP, because that is the preferred ERP of choice. But we also have people using DB2 and SQL databases, and that's absolutely no challenge from an integration standpoint.
Okay, so we have one more from the audience, which says, how would planning analytics help organizations to cut cost within this COVID COVID-19 situation, it is already
Mhm.
challenging for companies to buy software in the time being.
Mhm, mhm. That's a very valid question. So what I would say is the pros outweigh the cons. Definitely, anything good comes at a price, right? So what you pay is price, but what you get is value. And if the value outweighs the price you are paying, then definitely the organization stands to save a lot in the long run. And like the research states that organizations of a large size stand to receive greater than $1 million in terms of benefit. But from a starting point, like I said, Planning Analytics is available as a 90-day free trial at the moment. So from a COVID-19 perspective, what we are seeing is a lot of people want to streamline their supply chain operations. They want to connect product bomb explosion. They want to manipulate recipes. They want to create new product launches. They want to factor in currency fluctuations also. And in an environment when all of this is taking place in individual departmental spreadsheets, individual silos, it's very difficult to respond to a pandemic like COVID, let alone COVID, any other business calamity that has to hit your business. Maybe there's the entry of a new competitor, like for the telecom sector, Geo came in overnight, changed prices, and a radical transformation and consolidation took place. So you would not be able to drive this change across an organization of 70,000 people, where probably 10,000 are involved in the planning, if they are not integrated on one platform. So possibly as an organization you could survive, but definitely it's going to be a very complicated challenge to undergo. So Planning Analytics for now is available as a 90-day free trial, but it also starts from as little as $45 or 3,500 rupees per user per month. So for one single user, it does not cost more than 40,000 rupees, 40,000 INR for an entire year. And if you have a small departmental use case, you can have that for 5 power users. And then depending on the kind of benefits you are seeing, because everything is on one platform, you can report from that platform to senior level management as well, like we spoke earlier on an iPad probably. So then you can extend that use case. So you don't necessarily need to start with a big bang. You can start small and expand as you see benefit.
Okay, Roscoe, that was
And
very, yes.
Roscoe, I would like to
Yeah,
add a few things here. So, along with
sure.
the 90 days free trial from IBM Planning Analytics, what Veracities is contributing towards that, we also provide our some of the solutions which we have pre-built in IBM Planning Analytics for free usage on top of that. So, along with what IBM provides, all the modules which are pre-built, Veracities is also spending our interest on sharing those modules or sharing those capabilities free of cost for 90 days, depending upon the use case.
That's right, and that's a very good point to add, Jaydeep. So we as Veracities, being an MSME ourselves, although we've been there for 10 years in the industry, we understand it's a difficult time for most organizations to consider a new investment. But we also understand the opportunity that we have with tools such as these, because most businesses have had to essentially digitize overnight because of COVID. They had to enable work from home. They had to have social collaboration tools. Now, planning is also a challenge because there are many spreadsheets going back and forth. There is no single platform to collaborate. There is no integration with databases. So all of these can be alleviated using a solution such as Planning Analytics, where we as Veracities, thanks to a strong dynamic team, we have certain solutions around CapEx planning. We have also these videos hosted on our Veracities YouTube page, which I invite all of our attendees today to view so that you get a sense of how exactly these solutions work. These are small 5-10 minute videos that will really give you a strong sense of the use cases that you can build this platform for.
So
Yes.
I am sure it has nicely, it has helped Mr. Ayman, who asked this question. Moving on to the next question that we have is there flexibility to deploy on cloud versus on premise? So
Sure.
so
So
how
I'll take this question.
flexible is planning and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. Unlike other vendors who are trying to force their users to move to cloud, IBM takes a contrary stance. You could be on premise. you could be on cloud with 100% functional parity, meaning all the features and functionalities are same irrespective of where you are. And you can conduct it as a journey also. You can orchestrate it by starting from cloud for the UAT and POC phase, because it's cheaper to operate on probably initially. Then you can move to on-premise, or you can start on-premise and then move on to cloud. And also, it doesn't have to be IBM cloud. It could be any cloud that you have at the moment. It could be Azure, it could be AWS, or it could probably be even Red Hat OpenShift, and you have that flexibility.
Okay, so it's quite flexible. Okay.
Yes.
Moving on, we have how quickly can an AOP model be implemented?
Sure. So, Jaideep, I would invite your expertise over here to just share a sense on how quickly this can be done.
So depending upon the use case and as you have explained here with the 4 different roles, based on those requirement or based on those use case, it can be quickly developed within 80 days to 100 days, 100 man days. And with that expertise, Veracities has over the period of 10 years, we can build any model which is medium complex to highly complex within 80 to 100 140 days, 140 main days.
Oh, that's really a good time, I guess. So yeah, moving on, is this applicable for pharma industry as well? So is this industry specific solution or it is industry agnostic?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Sneha. I'll take this one up, Jaideep. So here I'd like to talk about an example of one of the customers we worked in the past. It is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country. It is a multinational corporation. And what we had done for them is created a demand planning and forecasting solution. So like I said, IBM Planning Analytics is not a point solution. It does not function in a silo. It is a platform that enables certain planning, budgeting, forecasting activities, in addition to which IBM has an entire ecosystem of solutions. One of those being that specifically for statistical forecasting. So using that statistical forecasting engine, we used 5 years historical data for 35 depots, 2 central warehouses, across 1000 SKUs, and we were able to give them an accuracy of 85%. Previously they were at 72% around. They were doing this manual forecasting exercise over 10 days, or approximately 2 weeks, and this was done only for 1 central warehouse and roughly 200 SKUs. So like I said previously, this is not an industry specific platform. It could be built to cater a solution for the cement industry, for the pharmaceutical industry, retail, BFSI as well. And this is only one of the examples that I'm talking about, but it really does not restrict itself to any particular industry.
Okay, it's not industry specific. So Roscoe, moving on. Okay, as you know that due to this COVID-19, everybody is working from home. So is this solution, can we deliver this solution completely offsite, or you need an onshore implementation team also?
That's an interesting question, Sneha. So we recently received a request from one of the customers also. It was an RFP that we responded to. Initially, they expected the engagement to be 100% on site. It was somewhere in the Middle East. And during the technical conversation, they asked us for an offsite plan as well. So safe to say that Veracities is 100% flexible to conduct this delivery completely offsite. We have a central incubator or a delivery center based out of Bombay, where we have one of the largest number of certified consultants from a planning analytics perspective in India, South Asia. And because all of these consultants of ours have been enabled with secure work from home facilities, we could enable a quick provision of cloud for one of our customers. We could do the build over there, and then ultimately the deployment can also be done on premise. That would be subject to the safeguards, the security policies that we have in place at the particular customer's premises. So they would have to share certain remote collaboration tools, and depending on what they're using, it could be maybe a Citrix, or maybe it could be something else, maybe a VM access directly. We are completely flexible to deliver offsite.
Okay. So we've already spoken, about the costing, how cheaply it is available. But I would still want you elaborating a little on, how, like, what is the usual cost for licensing?
Sure. So, like I said, there's a planning analytics digital offering that is roughly $45 per user per month. So that's roughly 3,000 per user per month. If you do the math, so that's 40K per year. If I have 5 people using it, it's 2 lakhs per year. And here I do not have to invest for hardware. I am getting software hosted on a particular cloud, so I can access planning analytics directly. I can carry out multiple projects over there. So starting at as minimum as 2 lakhs a year, I could have planning analytics digital, which is basically a SaaS offering for planning analytics.
Okay, that is cheaply available. Um, okay, moving on to the next question we have is there a restriction on size of data that can be loaded into planning tool? I mean, that's the main, question right now, I feel.
Okay. So Jerry, do you want to take this up or should I take this up?
You can take it.
Okay, sure. So from a storage standpoint, there's no real restriction because if you go on cloud, then IBM hosts the data for you in a secure environment. If you do it on premise, then it is subject to your hardware sizing. What are the size or storage available on your servers? And the platform, Planning Analytics, does not restrict you to any particular amount. And usually that challenge does not arise because it is a planning, budgeting, forecasting solution. At max, you would probably have 5 years information for comparative or long range planning perspective. And we have multiple customers who are using it very comfortably. In fact, there's a particular example that I'd like to take over here that I usually do. So assume we have 1,000 products, 20 BUs, 60 months information, 40 depots, 2 central warehouses, 30 line items, and 4 versions. Now, this results in greater than 10 billion intersections. And we have a particular customer called as Ancestry. It is available on the IBM website as well. That is working with 51 quintillion intersections of data. So that should really tell you about how not only from a storage perspective, but also from a performance standpoint, planning analytics is equipped to handle that kind of information if the need arises.
Okay. I am very sure, these questions, whoever asked today from the attendees, we have answered them all, and I'm very sure it has helped them understand a little better. So here I would like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. Thank you, Roscoe, for giving such a wonderful session, and thank you, Jaydeep.
Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah,
Thanks
thank you.
everyone. Thank you so much for attending. Do look out for our future webinars as well. We will be talking more about the technologies and platforms we support. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.